Hi there, it's Dr. Everybody. We're going to take a look at Project 5. And what you're doing with this project is you're going to be dealing with a couple of files. We're going to have a file, a library file, which has a bunch of functions in it because this project is about functions. And then we're going to have this test file to show that our functions work. So really the hard part is dealing with the library file. And in that file we have a bunch of functions that we have to do. And you know, pretty much what the idea is here is to take all our string functions or string methods as they're called and see how they would actually be written. That's what it's about. So there's an is alpha and an is digit and so on. And then there are some that are similar to but a little different, like find is just find. And so we have find character and find string. Just there's reasons why we did it that way. But so the idea is just, you know, okay, so how do these things actually work? So we're going to write all these, and that's what goes into the library. The function, you know, these particular functions, and then we're going to write a program that tests those. And our notation here is that we're going to have a function whose name is alpha, and it's going to have one argument, the parameter, which will be a string, and what's showing up after the arrow here is the type of the thing that we're going to return. So for example, is alpha, that's asking a question. Is this string all alphabetical characters as opposed to digits, for example? And if it's all letters, then we'll return true. If there's anything that's not letters in there, then we will return false. And in fact, this is a nice one to start with. And let's take a look at how we might do that. Just one thing is that we include these constants. So, you know, we just define a string, and we use capital letters when we define these constants. And, you know, so all the lowercase letters, all the uppercase letters, all the digits. And let's take a look at how we might do this. Let me just get a blank screen to write with. And we're going to take a look at is alpha. Okay. And so we're going to define is alpha. And it's going to have one parameter, which is, it's going to be a string. I'll call it S. And at some point, because we're returning a Boolean, we're going to have, you know, return true, and maybe someplace else we'll have return false, something like that. Or we may have something that, you know, where we say result is assigned to be true, and then we will, you know, we will return our result. Something like that. That's what this part here means. We're going to be returning a Boolean, either directly or indirectly, saying result is true, return the result. All right. So how does this work? Well, let's take a look at some possibilities here. Suppose, you know, so I want to see a string. So let's actually look at a string. I'll say my S equals A, B, C, 3, D, E, F. Okay. So if that's my string, because we have this 3 in here, this should return a false because it is not just letters in there. There's actually a digit in there. So how, in fact, do we go about doing that? Well, we're going to go through and look at each letter. That tells me that maybe I better have something like a 4. So for each letter in my string, we're going to go through that every character at a time. You know, we know exactly how long And in Python, you know, we use for a lot. You know, so you know, because we're going to march through everything here. So how am I going to do this? Well, I will check to see if each of these is a letter or not. And how do I tell whether it's a letter or not? Well, it's a letter if it's lowercase or it's uppercase. And we will say, is it in? In is a great check. Is it in this lowercase string or is it in the uppercase string? So, and by the way, one thing I did is I created an ASCII. You know, we aren't limited just to these constants. I did an ASCII all, which was the sum of those two. Lowercase plus ASCII uppercase. Define your own constants. Why not? And so now I can say, all right, so I look at each character and I ask the question, is the character in this case, my ASCII all? And if it is, well, then we're okay. And if it's not, then I know that this is going to be false. So the way to think about this is we can start out and say, all right, I'm going to assume that my string is going to be okay. And if I find that I have something that's not as a letter, then I know that it's as soon as I got just one character in here that's not a letter, I know that this thing is going to be false. So say, you know, we'll just assume that it's true, and as soon as I find any one bad one, then I will call it false. And so in fact, if I ever find a character that's not in, oops, it wouldn't go there, it would go here, not. So if my character is not in there, what will I do? Well, my result will be false. Not only will my result be false, but I can stop looking at that point. And I could break out of here, or better yet, I can just return false right then. So you go through every character, say if it's not in the ASCII set, I found a bad letter. I'm done. I don't have to go through the rest of it. Just return false right there. And somehow now you have to handle the situation. Okay, so what if I don't do that? How do I end up returning true? And I'll leave that to you, but that's the guts of what happens in here. And the idea is we assume that everything's going to be true, and as soon as I find one character that's not a letter, then I can either set my result to be false and break out of my loop, or I can just return false right there. And later on, I can return a true under some condition. Right? Now, you got to work out some logic here, but you write these lines of code here, and what do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5. You'll need a couple more lines of code. Just half a dozen lines of code. That's all there is. And then you test it out. And then we've done one of them. And by the way, isDigit is almost exactly the same. But that's not the interesting one. Let's go and take a look at one other one. Let's take a look at finding a character. This one, it turns out, is quite useful in doing some of the others. In fact, I would do, you could do isAlpha, just like we did it. But I would certainly do the find the character before I did the 2 upper and the 2 lower. So what is it? What is this? This is like saying find character of, we'll give it a string, hello. Let's find the character L in there. Right? And what this is going to do is give us the index 0, 1, 2. So the result of this will be the 2. Right? At what index is the L in here? Remember, with indices we start at 0, 0, 1, 2. It's at index 2. If the fact that there's a second L in there, we don't care about that. We just find the first one. Notice here, see, it returns an integer. That's the index. And so how do I do it? Well, again, I'll define a character, define a function, find character of some string, and in there I will have a character. And what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to march through my string a character at a time, right? Always using the for loops. And then if I find if this guy that I'm looking for, that would be like my L, if that character is in my string, so I'm going to have an if, and I'm going to have an in there. So if this character that I'm looking for is in my string, then I have found it. And what do I want? Well, I want to return some kind of an index. That is, this value that's 2. So I'm going to have my index start at 0 and keep adding 1 to it as I go along. So again, it's about half a dozen lines of code. Each one of these is relatively short, and you can test it out. Build it up, test it out. And it's the testing out that actually ends up being your test program eventually. So you make each one of these, you test it out. And what do we mean by testing? What you want to see, the idea of testing, this is a completely simple thing, is can I break it? That's really what you're trying to do, because that's what your TA is going to do. Right? It's like, okay, this student thinks they've written a fine character that does everything that the fine character should do. All right, I'm going to see if I can break it. And that's what we, so test it out. So that's sort of your challenge. So what might I do to break this thing? So suppose I gave it an empty string. Suppose I gave it a multiple characters. What if it's not in there? Right? We have instructions about that. This thing is supposed to return a -1 if it's not found. Okay, how do I do that? So you got to make sure that you test all those things out. So the next thing I want to mention is we give you a file to test with, and it has it does capitalization, and so the idea is if I can actually run this thing. So we have 2 programs that we gave you to start with. We have the library. Okay, so here's the library, and we put just one function in it, and then we have the test, which is a test of testing out the capitalization. Now these are 2 tests. Yeah, we're probably going to need more tests, but that's a start, and we can see it running. So I can take this guy, fire it up, and you can see that what happened. We printed the ASCII lowercase just to see that we actually had it in there, and then we capitalized A. That was already capitalized, so we don't do anything to it. And then I did a capitalization of B, and the little j becomes a capital J. And also, by the way, if I did, how else does capitalization work? Suppose I have a string that starts with digits. something like that. Well, that would involve me being able to spell correctly. If it has something that's not a letter, then it doesn't do anything to it. So how does our code actually work? Let's take a look at this. So we give it a string. So in this case, my string might be the quick round fox. And then I look at the first character in the string, remember character in 0 position, and I say if it is not in my lowercase, so if it's not in this string, so for example when I had the J in there, so if it's, I'm sorry, not there, if it's not in the lowercase, then it's either uppercase or it's a digit, and I will set my new to being just a copy of the original, because and later on I'm going to return that. So that does nothing, right? It just sets new to be the string as it was originally. We skip the else, and we come down here and we return the new. By the way, I think a better way to do that is just at this point, instead of that, just return the original. So I'll come down here and I'll say, hey, the first character is not a lowercase character. There's nothing for me to do. Just return the original. I kind of like doing it that way. And then down here it does some arithmetic with ASCII to, I don't really like doing that, so let's show you a different way, and I think a better way to do that. The problem with this is that this is strictly ASCII, and it doesn't really, now that the world is bigger than English, in the world of Unicode, this may not always work. So we can actually, if I have the find character, we can use that here in place. And so let's take a look at how that might look. I'll fix this. One of the important things of solving a problem, Polya's How to Solve It book, is that once you have a problem solved, you should always go back and see if there's a better way of doing it. Here, this is not necessarily a better way, but I have a different way of thinking about this problem. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it my way. And by the way, there are clues here for how to do this project in rewriting this particular function. So for example, there is a clue in here that says, way down in the notes, that says, that's number 5 there. It says use these guys. You know what? I'm going to show you how to do this without using those guys. And instead of using those guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to write the find character, and then I'm going to use that in things like 2 lower, 2 upper, and let's see how that goes. So we need I need one more file here. So let's bring it up. Nope, wrong one. Wrong class. It's my graduate class, graduate security class. Let's bring up this one. So this is my version of the library. And one of the things that has in it down here is that I have already written and tested out this find a character. So I have that. And what can we do with that? So let's take a look at this program. Okay, so what am I going to do? First of all, I am going to fix this, and I will so what does this say? This says that if the first character, the character in position 0, is not lowercase, there's nothing for me to do, so let's just return the original string right there. Boom, I'm done. And if I have a return in the middle of my function, that exits right now. Exits, I can't spell today, exits right now. And we're done. It won't even go, anything after that won't be done. Okay, so there's the first thing that I'll do. Now, how might I handle this? So what are we doing? We want to, so if I had something like, if my original was the string hello, what do I want to do? I recognize that this is lowercase, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to find where that H is. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That will be the 7th character. Right? And I'm going to use find character to get me that. And now once I know that that's, say, the index in the 7th position, then I can use that 7 to grab the capital H, because the capital H is in the same position in the string, in the uppercase string, as the other is in the lowercase string. So let's take a look at doing that. So how I'm going to do that? So I'm going to take my I'm going to find an index, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to use this find character function that I wrote, and I'm going to take, what am I going to do? I am going to take ASCII uppercase as the first parameter, and the second parameter will be this first character. That would be like the H here, the lowercase h. Now when I know it's lowercase h, why do I know it's lowercase h? Because not in failed. So if it's how did I get down to the else? I get down to the else if it is actually in the ASCII lowercase, and you convince yourself of that. I did this part if it was not in the ASCII lowercase, and so we now, from the logic, we know that this has to be in the lowercase. So RH of 0 we know is a lowercase, and I want to find where it is in there, and I blew this. Let's go fix this. I want to find it in the lowercase. Because what I want to do is I want to say, where is H in this string, and assign it the index. So in this case, this is going to end up being a 7. And now once I have that 7, what is my new character? My new character is the ASCII uppercase at that particular index. Now that I have the new character, I can just add it into this existing string there. Oh, by the way, since we're here, new car is a string, so we actually don't need that stuff. And what's this? This is the rest of the string, or the slice starts at position 1, in this case position 1, and goes to the rest. So that would be, in this case, that would be that part. So we go our new character, that's a capital H character in this case. And so I take the H and then I add on to it the ELLO, the rest of it. And that gives me a capital hello, and that's what I'll return. So let's type that in. So we're going to get rid of this. And I'm going to need to find an index. So I say index. What is the index? Well, I'm going to use my find character function, and I'm going to give it the, I want to find it in the ASCII lowercase. Where is that first character, that orange 0, in the ASCII lowercase? That would be the 7 in this case. So now what I want to do is grab the character in the same position in the uppercase. And then I'm going to clean up this piece of code because I don't need the str there. It didn't do any harm. I just didn't need it. And because of how, because of how I did the return of the original, because I did this guy here, I returned original there, I just stuck the return new in here. So now I'll calculate an index. If I had my original equaling hello, this guy is in position 0. And so I say, okay, find that guy, that's my H. Where is he in the ASCII lowercase? And that gives me my index equals 7. And now I find where is that in the uppercase. So I come into 7 in the uppercase. That gives me a capital H. So my new character is a capital H. And then I slice off everything but the first character here, so that's the ELLO. And so when, what will my new be? My new is capitalized. So that gives me, by using this trick of finding the index and then matching up the lowercase and uppercase strings together, I can find the index in one and find the corresponding capital letter. And I can use that idea for to lower. Every time I find a character, I find where it is in the uppercase, and then I can find it in the lowercase. Just the reverse of the to upper. And by the time you've, once you've done the find character with a, finding a character, finding a string isn't that much harder, and the same thing with replace. So I think start with is alpha, get that working. Next, I would do the find character, use that for the previous two. Once you've done is alpha, the is digit is very similar, sort of like when we went from sine to cosine. Same thing here. Once you've done to lower, to upper is just a small change. So these are all paired up. Once you've done one, you've got the other. That should be enough. Have fun.